Great West London.
91.8 Hayes FM.
This is Hayes and Harlington, one of the safest Labour seats in the southeast of England. The West London suburb is home to Heathrow Airport and is one of the most ethnically diverse communities in the country. Despite the diversity, those who voted to remain in the EU in last year's referendum were in the minority, only 40% of the borough. And now some of them are worried.
I was concerned when we decided to leave, so I'm still confused about what that actually means and what it's going to mean for us that are living in the area and for travel and everything.
And one of those who voted to leave is local small businessman John Paul.
Well, for one, they've got to stop letting people in the country. My family, we're immigrants, my family, from my mum and my dad when they moved here. We're Maltese, but there's too many people now. There's like the schools, I see with a school round the corner there, can't cope with the amount of children. There's always hospitals closing down. The infrastructure can't take what's happening with too many people now.
But one thing the majority of the people we spoke to did agree on was the local MP, Labour Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, who has held the seat since 1987.
You know, everybody who goes to them, he helped them.
So he's very popular?
He's very popular in this, as far as I know.
Very good, very nice person, very helpful.
I know him for a long time, and all the time whenever we have any problems, we try to help.
It's a really nice community. I've been here about 40 years now, and it's a multicultural community. And people rub along together pretty well.
It's estimated that this constituency probably voted out, certainly the borough voted for Brexit very strongly. Yeah. Why do you think people voted to leave the EU here?
Absolute insecurity. Again, this is one of those areas which felt had been left behind, and individuals felt they'd been left behind. The whole borough, the London Borough of Hillingdon, which is located in, voted for leave. But I think this constituency as well felt all that insecurity that they had, particularly around housing and jobs, and it was a vote to say the existing system's not working for me. And certainly they felt the relationship with the European Union wasn't working for them as well.
Do you think immigration came into it as well?
A bit. Because what happens is if you're under pressure and your wages aren't very high, you're struggling to maintain a secure job, and the public service is under pressure, you're going to blame someone, and sometimes it becomes the migrant that you blame. Instead of really understanding, actually, for a lot of the problems that we've got in this area is lack of investment over a long period of time in housing, lack of investment in skills training to get the decent jobs that we want, and also exploitative employers.
I'm quite interested to know about Labour's policies as well. Yeah. We may have an election before 2020, of course, we don't know for sure.
Could come any time.
It's a possibility, of course. What are you doing to win over Conservative voters?
Trying to address their concerns. I'll give you an example this week, and I've been talking to people in the constituency this week as well. Whether you're Labour, Conservative or whatever political party you support, you know what the problems are in terms of the NHS. The one that's hitting us hard in this area in particular is social care too. That lack of investment by the government in the NHS, the lack of investment in social care, goes across all classes, and it goes across all political representation.
It does go across all classes, but at the same time it is solid Labour territory. It's the kind of thing that you're almost playing at home on the NHS, aren't you? Is there anything that you're trying to move over into Conservative territory?
Okay, that's the issue this week, and as I say, that affects everybody, and it's bringing people together. And I've talked to Conservative voters and Conservative supporters, and even Conservative MPs you saw in the House of Commons this week are saying the government's got to act. Theresa May can't be in denial about that, she's got to act. So an issue like that, of course, it's a traditional area for us because we set up the NHS. But this issue around job security is quite important as well. As I say, it's affecting isn't just ordinary working class people, it's also affecting those who are slightly middle earners as well, and particularly those ones who feel under pressure if they're working in the public sector and the private sector. Working long hours under a lot of pressure, and yet you've had your pay frozen effectively for the last 6 or 7 years.
On the NHS, there is a crisis, clearly, you can see that.
Yeah. What's
the solution?
It is investment, I'm afraid. You can't get away from it. It isn't just money. It is about listening to the people on the front line. I work closely with my local hospital. I meet with my local GPs. What's happened basically is an erosion of investment that isn't meeting the demands that we have. I'm also worried that there's been large-scale privatisation where money has been poured into private companies for profits rather than for healthcare itself. But my biggest worry at the moment, what's happening in our health service, of course, but also in terms of social care. And I met with the social care providers this week, and what they're saying is that there's some big companies that we're worried about being at risk because local authority money has been cut back. They can't afford to pay effectively to these companies what is needed to ensure they maintain a standard of care. But what the social care providers were saying to me this week, it isn't just the big companies, it's the small providers, that if we don't have some movement from the government over the next few months, we could see a number of them going to the wall. So where do those elderly people then go? Because they're homeless effectively. You have to look to the local authority then to intervene, but the local authorities are saying across the piece, across all political parties, they're at a tipping point on social care. And that is about investment, I'm afraid.
So if it's about investment, how much are you prepared to put up taxes then to pay for the NHS?
Well, I think it's about rebalancing our tax system. I'll just give this example. Over the next 5 or 6 years, the government will be giving away to the wealthiest in our society and to the corporations the smallest, the most conservative with a small c estimate is £70 billion. Why are we giving money away to corporations and the wealthy when actually our public services are being undermined? We've got to rebalance our tax system.
So in other words, you want to put up taxes, but for the wealthy or for businesses?
I want to stop the tax cuts that are taking place to the wealthiest and the corporations that the government is planning for the next 5 or 6 years.
So that is really another way of saying put up taxes?
No, it's saying stop giving away money to those who don't need it when there's a need for investment in our public services.
Let's talk about a few other policies there for Labour. In your opinion, when Labour goes into the next election, will they still have a policy to renew Trident?
Well, the Labour Party policy is renewal Trident, that's it. It's not. I don't support it, but I have one vote like every other Labour Party member. I voted against Trident. The majority was in favour. I'm a Democrat. I respect people's wishes.
And are you looking at the maximum wage? Is that something that
we're looking at? Pay ratios, yeah. That's interesting, this, because we've been talking about this for the last couple of years, and certainly since Jeremy was elected leader, we've been arguing for pay ratios.
But not a cap?
Well, a pay ratio effectively is a cap, because what it means is that if you're going to have a high rate at the top, you've got to bring the rates up at the lower level. And that's one of the most effective ways of, I think, tackling some of the issues around inequality. But in addition to that, can I just give the example of what's happened here?
Yeah, please do.
We've got a strike on this constituency at the moment at Heathrow Airport, BA workers. Yeah. A few years ago, cabin crew would earn about £35,000 a year. The new cabin crew that are now recruited are on half that wage, nearly half that wage. In the meantime, the chief executive of BA 5 or 6 years ago would earn about £800,000. Now he's earning nearly £8 million. No wonder the workers are angry. That's why there's a strike on at the moment. No wonder people are angry. They're seeing their wages cut while the chief exec's wages and some of the other senior staff are literally, well, I think being paid huge fortunes. That breeds not just inequality, but breeds discontent. And that's why people are on strike. They're so angry about it. If you had a pay ratio, it would mean that you wouldn't have these grotesque inequalities, but actually it would lift wages up at the bottom as well.
We mentioned strikes. I was delayed getting here this morning because of the train strikes. Would you stand on a picket line? Yeah, of course. I'm a trade unionist. Of course I would. And I don't say that in any provocative way or anything like that. People don't go on strike easily. You know, I've been on strike. Others, you don't. Particularly if you're a working class person, you haven't got an awful lot in the bank to tide you over. And if you look at some of the statistics that have researched recently, it's shocking how little people have got to fall back on. So don't go on strike lightly. And I just say, like the BA dispute in my constituency here, I know it's disruptive, and I apologise to those people who would be having their lives disrupted as a result of that. But it's a justifiable anger, and I can understand why they're going on strike. And on behalf of my constituents who are joining that strike, I support them. I think their cause is just. It's as simple as that. Now, this was supposed to be the week of the big Jeremy Corbyn relaunch. Yeah. That's what we were told in the media anyway. Things didn't go quite to plan. It's been quite a difficult week for Labour, really. Jeremy Corbyn got into some slight U-turns, you could say, on that day. The polls are still not really showing any improvement for Labour. If this is still the situation before the next election, do you think Jeremy Corbyn will stand out?
It's not going to be the situation before the next election. It's not. I thought this week was pretty good. I know.
You thought it was a good week?
Well, on the issues that we wanted to get across on the day, The issue around pay was raised, and he answered honestly in the authentic way he always does. That dominated the media for 2 days, and we drew people into a debate that they'd never had before, well, certainly not for a long time, and we drew them in on our own terms as well. We opened up the discussion around free movement and our relationship with Europe. That discussion will go on. I think it will be incredibly creative.
One of the other things that people want to see as well, of course, is people who've got a firm grip on the economy.
Yeah.
YouGov recently saying only 14% of people trust Labour to run the economy.
Yeah.
You're the Shadow Chancellor.
Yeah.
That's your fault, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because I was looking at those polls as well. Even before the 97 general election, people were not trusting Labour on the economy. We were behind in the polls then, even under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown in opposition. So it's been a traditional problem with opposition parties.
But 40% is
Oh no, but it's been very low. We were 20 points behind before, even under Ed Balls. And the reason for that at the moment is because, of course, people still cannot forgive Labour because they were in power during the big crash of 2007, 2008. And we've been well behind since then. Rebuilding that confidence is difficult, of course it is, but we're doing it. Slowly but surely we will. And what we're doing is bringing people together from all walks of life, from trade unions and businesses and community representatives to say, what are the issues in your local economy? How can we plan that economy? What resources do you need? What do you want central government to do? And in that way, it will take time. In that way, we're trying to raise the whole level of economic debate in this country and stop talking down to people and start listening to people again.
Just finally, some of the Labour MPs that I speak to who are not necessarily the greatest fans of yourself or Jeremy Corbyn.
Can't believe that.
Yeah, who could these people be? But they give an impression of you that they're almost a bit frightened of you, that you're a bit like a militant, you're a firebrand. But whenever you're on TV, you come across as almost like a mild-mannered accountant. Who's the real John McDonnell?
Yeah. Look, I've come from Liverpool originally. I'm a Scouser originally. I lost my accent because we moved south for work. But I tell people I'm straight with people. I tell people how I feel. Sometimes I may go over the top, but I'm also often ready to apologise if I do. But I'd rather that than anything else. I want to know what you honestly think about things, and that's how I operate.
Okay, Mr. McDonnell,
Thanks
thank you very much. So there, John McDonnell is an MP from a working class background who represents the constituency that defies the Labour stereotype of the North London champagne socialism. And it's clear that here, his left-wing values go down pretty well. But do they appeal to the rest of the country? That is the real test for the Labour Party.